If you don't change, then nothing changes. If you grew up struggling financially, emotionally, or mentally, understand this. It's up to you to change the trajectory of your family moving forward. No one else is going to do it. Now, unless your parents were just truly just terrible, awful people, they were doing the best that they could with the knowledge and the life experiences that they had in that moment. Now, certainly some people wish that they had been raised differently. They wish that their mother would have done this or their father would have done this. But you have to understand they were operating at the level that they could comprehend at that time with the experiences that they had, with the things that they went through. A lot of people are going through life with unforgiveness and resentments and pains and hurts. And the people that raised you are no different. They were raised a certain way by your grandparents or whomever raised them, and they simply pass that along to you. Now, if it's something that you felt was lacking in your life or a certain way that you were raised that you don't like or that you didn't like or that you wished was different, it's up to you to change it moving forward. Most parents that were not trying to be evil or to ruin our lives. They were just repeating what they were taught. They were just carrying the pain that they endured or the pain that they never dealt with. And then just passing down those struggles because no one ever stopped to ask, why are we like this? Why do we think like this? Why do we do this? But if you experienced something that you didn't like when you were growing up, and now you have children, it's up to you to discontinue the things that you don't like about your family history. It doesn't have to continue passing down generation after generation. At some point, it comes to one person, and you have to be that one person. It's up to you to change everything moving forward after you. Because if you don't make that decision to change, then the same traumas and the same pains and struggles that your parents dealt with, that you dealt with, you're going to pass on to your children and your grandchildren if you don't make the decision to change it. And what a shitty way to live if you were raised in this lack or limitation or pain or struggle and you hated it and you think about how you wished your life would have turned out differently. Well, you have the opportunity to make your life turn out differently. And you have the golden opportunity to raise your children and your grandchildren so they don't have to experience the same traumas and the same struggles and the same negative experiences that everyone above you has experienced, that your parents experienced and passed on to you, that your grandparents experienced and passed on to your parents. You don't have to pass that same shit on to your kids and your grandkids. You can stop it, but you have to become conscious of it. You know, a lot of people would just carry around this pain that they never created. They carry around resentments and fears and struggles that was never theirs to begin with. For instance, your parents struggled, so maybe they took it out on you. But what about their parents? If they hurt you, they were probably hurt too. So you weren't the first. You were just the next in line. And if you're not careful, you will pass that hurt down to your kids, because pain just doesn't disappear. It transfers. It goes from one generation to the next generation to the next generation until someone comes along and stops it. But just deciding to change isn't enough. It takes work. It takes stepping back and reevaluating everything that you've been taught, reevaluating everything that you've gone through, and really looking at it and seeing what effect it had on you. Because I've heard people complain, and I've done this myself, complain about certain ways that they were parented, but then they or we parent our kids the way that we didn't like being parented. And it makes no sense. If we were parented a certain way and we wish that it had been different, I would have been further if it had been different. I would have felt more loved or cared for or whatever if it had been different. And then we do the exact same things to our kids. Things that made us feel unseen or unheard. And we just pass that down to our kids. But at some point, you have to come to a place where you become conscious of it and you decide, we are done with this. We are completely changing. And certainly it's difficult because you've been raised a certain way. Certain actions have been ingrained in you, and it takes a conscious look at how you're acting, at the words that you're saying, at what you're doing, so that you can now change how you're raising your kids and how they will eventually raise their own kids. And a lot of people, they stay stuck in these patterns, but it's not because they're necessarily cursed to stay stuck in these patterns. Sometimes they just believe they're cursed, which is ridiculous. So I once knew a guy, and his family believed in what's called let me change the name. His family believed in what's called the Lindell curse. So going back to his grandfather, anytime something bad would happen, they would say, well, that's just the Lindell curse. Can't ever get away from that. Bad things just always happen to us. So of course, bad things are always going to happen, because that's what that whole family was constantly thinking. Every time something bad happened, yep, that's just our Lindell curse. They're speaking it into existence. So of course they're going to struggle through their life. Of course they're going to deal with depression. Of course they're going to deal with suicide. Of course they're going to deal with never reaching their full potential and struggle and pain, because all they're speaking is about this family curse that they have. And it started with the grandfather, and it may have started even further than that. And that's so sad, because how many families go through life thinking that their family is cursed? And this bullshit statement is just passed down through generation. So until one person comes along and starts speaking different words over that family, it's just going to continue passing down. I worked with one of the sons, and that's what he would say. He said, yeah, my family we're just cursed. And then I spoke to his dad at a different point in time, and he said the same exact thing. He's like, yep, that's just the Lindell curse. That's why we're struggling. And it blew my mind. If that's not what you want in your life, stop speaking it. They weren't cursed. I mean, they were cursing themselves, because that's all they were saying. Every time something bad would happen, we can never get ahead because of the Lindell curse. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And you don't have to live like that. So if you're dealing with something like that, where your family is always saying something negative, like, well, our family can never get ahead, this is just our lot in life. No, it's not. You can literally create whatever life you want. That's not your lot in life. If you're not completely joyful and satisfied and free and whole and have a beautiful mindset on life, then you don't have to live like that, because you can certainly live this beautiful, carefree, loving, joyful life. It is all perspective. It's all how you look at it. This family looked at it in a negative viewpoint, that bad things always happen to them. So bad things just kept happening to them, because that's what they were speaking. Now, a lot of people like saying that your family is cursed. That's just a cop-out. That can keep you lazy. Well, I better not try because, the family curse is going to win. It's just an excuse to say the same. It's an excuse to avoid doing the hard work that it takes to change. That family could become an amazing family and leave an amazing legacy. But instead, they've all just adopted this, it's just the family curse. My back hurts all the time and I can't move because of the family curse. We always struggle financially because of the family curse. Not realizing, but if you would just start saying something different, like, things always work out for our family. It's 50-50. You can just as easily say that things always work out for you as you can say things never work out for you. It's all perspective. You have to change your mindset to believe optimistically things always work out for me. Even if this event happened and it sucks, it's always going to work out for me in the end. And can you imagine how much further along you would be if you started talking to yourself like that? If you changed your thoughts and the words that you speak over your family, how much more abundant you're going to be after you start changing your mindset concerning all of that? This is what people don't understand. Your beliefs are going to shape your reality. So if you believe everything is amazing, then that's what you're going to see in your life. Amazing things. If you believe that bad stuff always happens to you in your life, then that's what you're going to see. Just bad things in your life. Your words, your mindset, your expectations, those are like the seeds that you plant in your life. So whatever kind of seeds you're planting, that's what's eventually going to grow. So if you're planting only beautiful, wonderful, positive seeds, then that's what your life is going to grow. But if you're planting lack and negativity and struggle, that's what your life's going to grow. And looking back at these family ties, like most people never stop to think, why do we do what we do? Why do we think the way that we think? They just repeat what they've been told without ever stopping to ask the question, why do we do this? It reminds me about the story of the woman who always cut her roast in half. Every time she cooked the roast, she cut it in half. And one day her husband comes along and says, why do you always cut your roasts in half? And she says, I don't know. It's just the way my mom always did it. And so then the husband goes to the mom and asks, why do y'all always cut your roasts in half? Well, I don't know. That's just the way my mom always did it. So then the husband goes to the grandma and asks, why does everyone cut their roast in half? And she says, I don't know why y'all cut your roast in half. I cut the roast in half because my pan was too small for the whole roast. So they've been cutting this roast in half for decades, not even questioning why, even though it makes no sense to cut the roast in half. And so often we live our lives like that. We just do shit that's been done a certain way for so long, not stopping to think, why are we doing this? Why are we thinking like this? Where did this Lindell curse come from? And why are we continuing to repeat it over our lives? Because it's keeping us stuck. It's keeping us in struggle. It's keeping us from reaching our full potential in life. How many things in your life are you doing just because your family's always done it this way? How many beliefs are you still holding on to? And you don't know why. Simply because they were passed down to you. Another example of this is the experiment with the 5 monkeys. So scientists placed 5 monkeys in a cage, put a ladder in the middle with bananas up at the top. But every time a monkey went to climb the ladder to get a banana, all the monkeys were sprayed with water. Okay, so they kept this experiment going. Every time a monkey would climb to try to get the banana, the scientists would spray all the monkeys with water, and eventually the monkeys started pulling the monkey that's climbing the ladder, the monkeys would start pulling them down. So then they started rotating the monkeys out to where there's new monkeys. So for instance, like a new monkey would come in, he would see that whenever somebody tries to climb, the other monkeys would pull them down. So now that monkey thinks no one's allowed to climb the ladder to get the bananas. So eventually, all of the monkeys are replaced, and none of the new monkeys have ever been sprayed with water. But they know you just can't climb this ladder to get the bananas, but they don't know why. They've just been trained to know that you don't climb the ladder to get the bananas, even though none of those new monkeys were ever sprayed with water. They had no idea why. They just knew we don't do that here. And that's exactly how most people live their lives. They follow rules that were set by people who aren't even around anymore. They follow traditions that were created in a world that no longer exists. Or they carry beliefs that were designed to protect their ancestors, but are keeping them trapped. You see this everywhere. People who grew up in poverty and just stay poor because this is just how life is. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. Or parents who scream at their kids and think, well, this is how I was raised. And it goes back to the same thing. If you didn't like it when you were a kid, you have to stop it. Otherwise, you're just going to pass on to your kids what you didn't like happening to you. Or, like the example I used earlier, families just struggling year after year and thinking, this is just how it goes for our family. It's just the Lindell curse. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. And oftentimes, the only reason that it's like that is because no one has stopped and said, Why are we doing this? This makes no sense. So if you're just repeating the cycle of pain and struggle and a poverty mindset, you need to stop and ask, why? Why do I think like this? And change it. Now, certainly you have to become introduced to the information. And if you're watching this, you've been introduced to the information. Now you have to do something with it if it pertains to you. That's called the law of exposure. You've been exposed to the information, and now it's up to you to do something with the information, because you didn't just find it by happenstance. There are no coincidences in life. So if you watch this or anything else that you come across and you feel it internally that that person is speaking directly to you, it's now up to you to change or do whatever it is that you're feeling called to do, because there's no coincidences that you found the video that you're watching. And this is why it's up to you to break the generational curses. It's up to you to change the hierarchy. It's up to you to change the trajectory of your family. You have to be the one that comes along and changes everything for everyone moving forward. Now, it's a big ask. It's a heavy responsibility for you to be the one person that's going to change the trajectory of your family. Sure, it's a big ask, but what are you going to do? Just come in the world and repeat the same struggles and the same mindset that came before you without even making a dent, without challenging anything? You just live with it because that's how it's always been? You can't be okay with just living, repeating the same negative cycles, passing it on to your kids, and then dying, because that's a legacy you're going to leave. Just the same negative cycles that you experienced, and you're never going to challenge it. You're never going to change it. And now, because you don't have the courage to change it, it just gets passed along, and that's your legacy, to just never change, to never grow, to never try to make your kids or your grandkids' lives better. You're just going to repeat the same cycle. And you have to take it upon yourself, because if you're not going to change it, who's going to change it? You have to come to a place where you decide, this is where it stops. I'm going to show my kids and teach my kids that you can do anything. You can accomplish anything. You don't have to struggle. And here's how you do it. And if you don't know how to do it, learn how to do it, because you're going to be called. You're going to be, when you decide, when you really decide, when you burn the boats and give yourself no other option but to grow, to become better, and you really decide that that's the path that you want to take, you will be guided. All you have to do is get quiet and listen, and you will be guided. Certainly it's going to be challenging, because you're trying to undo generations of one way of thinking. And along that path, you are going to get critics from the people that you think are closest to you, from your family. Who the hell do you think you are? You think you're better than we are. Who are you, Tony Robbins? What are you trying to accomplish? Like, we don't do that in this family. Stop listening to those people. And if those people are not supportive, then you don't need them in your life, regardless of how close you are, regardless of who they are in your family. Parents, aunts, uncles, this is your life. You don't owe anyone anything. You owe yourself and the people that come after you to become the best version of yourself. If the people before you didn't have the courage to do it and to change, or just didn't have the knowledge or the capacity at the time, then it's up to you. And there's nothing wrong with being raised a certain way or whatever, because again, I will go back. People just do the best they can with the information that they have at that time. That doesn't make them bad people. They just didn't have the information. But now you have the information. So it's up to you to do something with it. And if you don't make the decision to be better, then your children are going to grow up with the same struggles that you did, the same pains that you did, the same traumas that you did, and the same limitations that you did. You have to love yourself enough to say, I refuse to pass this down. I refuse to not live up to my highest potential. and show my kids that they can do the same thing. You have to become the best version of yourself and chase that all the way until you catch them. And you will never catch them. You will never become the best version of yourself. It's a constant stage of growing and learning. But if you're trying every single day to get 1% better than you were yesterday, that says more than a lifetime of not trying, a lifetime of staying the same. You have to love your spouse enough to show up differently than your parents did. You have to love your children enough to give them a life that they don't have to heal from their childhood. It's not easy. It's going to take real work. It's going to take real you looking in the mirror and being brutally honest with yourself. It's going to take undoing years or generations of conditioning. But if you don't do the hard work now, then your kids are going to have to do the hard work later. And what a shitty thing to leave for your kids to have to deal with something that you didn't have the courage to deal with. So the question is, are you going to be the one that's going to pass down the same things, the same struggles, the same traumas, the same negative beliefs and experiences that was passed down to you? Or are you going to be the one that changes it? Are you going to be the one that decides we're done living like that, moving forward, we are positive, we can accomplish anything, we are amazing individuals, everything we do is successful, we are powerful beyond measure, we are wise beyond our years? Because that can be you too. And that can be what you pass down. That can be the legacy that you pass down to your kids, to give them the confidence to understand that they can do anything and give them the tools to then go out and accomplish it, to show them emotional intelligence, to show them integrity, to show them intentionality, to show them how to be courageous and brave. It's up to you. It wasn't taught to you, but it can start with you. And that's your job. So I'm very passionate about this. But you got to look at your life like no more excuses, no more blaming, no more waiting for someone else to fix things. It's up to you. And if you decide to change, if you decide to rise above and do things differently, your entire bloodline will thank you. They will never have to experience the things that you experienced. All they will know is this beautiful, optimistic, successful life. They'll never have to know the struggle. They'll never have to know the negative mindset and the negative thinking that preceded you. It can stop with you. It should stop with you. Your name will mean something different. Your legacy will mean something different because you were the one that refused to settle. You were the one that decided to break the cycle. And because of that, generations that come after you will be able to live a life that they never would have had you not decided, I am going to change everything that preceded me. If you hadn't made that decision to change, it's up to you. So make the decision and never look back.